Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at 10 Star Wars games that are still worth playing today.
I sense a disturbance in the Force.
Since 1980, Star Wars has become a force to be reckoned with in the landscape of video games. We find that these titles have managed to hold up in their own unique ways. Which game from a galaxy far, far away is your favorite? Did it make the list? Let us know down in the comments. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Star Wars Dark Forces. Throughout the 90s, we saw a range of developers try to copy id Software's homework after Doom became a runaway success. Some would drown by the market saturation, but Dark Forces was lucky to survive by its own merits. Rather than mimic Doom by flooding every room with waves of enemies, Dark Forces focused on immersing the player with additional mission objectives and environmental puzzles, making it feel like you really were a part of the Rebel Alliance. On top of that, it was an excellent introduction to Kyle Katarn, a mercenary who would eventually find his way with the Force, and his story resonates with so many older Star Wars fans today. Star Wars Jedi Knight 2: Jedi Outcast.
The Valley of the Jedi?
Reborn? We believe this transmission was intended for Galactic Battlegrounds, the suspected leader of the remnant forces in that sector.
Jedi Outcast has an arcadey feel to its gameplay compared to later Star Wars games. That's not necessarily a bad thing, we almost prefer it in some ways. But what really makes Jedi Outcast stick out is how it explores the possibility of a Jedi abandoning the Force. After nearly turning to the dark side, Kyle Katarn has completely abandoned the Jedi and retreated to a life of simple mercenary work. What unfolds is one of the most unique and enthralling stories in Star Wars history, and luckily, you can still grab the game on modern hardware for a modest price. Star Wars Lethal Alliance. Lethal Alliance got some middling reviews at launch, with critics citing basic gameplay and combat, but honestly, that's all we could ask for from a third-person Star Wars shooter such as this. Lethal Alliance follows a Twi'lek woman named Rihanna Saren, who lives the life of a mercenary after freeing herself from enslavement. With the help of a droid named Zio, she sets out to track down her psychotic master and exact revenge. Though gritty in its story, the level design, boss fights, and simple gameplay are what have us coming back to this handheld title. Best played on PSP, we might add. DS is okay, but you should play this on PSP. Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. In a time where licensed games were some of the worst, and I mean the worst on the market, Star Wars seemed to always be the IP to escape that stigma. Case in point, Revenge of the Sith. Despite being based on the campy origins of Darth Vader, Revenge of the Sith offered up a plate of fun from start to finish with its pick-up-and-play combat and vast range of attacks for players to slice up enemies. And if you wanted to play with a friend, an extra mode was included for you two to go head-to-head as different Jedi and Sith. Couple this with a handful of bonus campaigns with different playable characters, and you have a Star Wars game that is just way too good to pass up. Star Wars Episode 1: Racer.
Oh, he is gonna be tough to beat.
Everybody out there knows that Racer Revenge is the best one. I personally don't get why so many people like Episode 1 Racer, but I faced some opposition when we were ranking this video, and Racer Revenge will always have a place in my heart, if not anyone else's, thanks to the detailed visuals, the improved controls, and the meaty roster of characters. However, most people choose Episode 1 Racer because regardless of how ugly its polygons can get, there's just something special about shopping for pod racing parts and then seeing how significantly improved your pod racer is afterwards. It is one thing that I do understand why people love Episode 1 Racer. It's because it feels a little more immersive in that sense, you know? Racer Revenge doesn't have that, and that's one thing that I am jealous of. Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. Shockingly, we don't really get Star Wars strategy games anymore, at least not as often as we did in the late 90s and early 2000s, and even then, it wasn't really often. Of the few we did see, Galactic Battlegrounds has been on our minds the most. It's your standard RTS fare, build a base, command units across the battlefield, and achieve total domination of the map. But the main selling points here are the several campaigns that take place across various points in the Star Wars story. From the Empire, to the Trade Federation, to the Rebel Alliance, you have hours upon hours of game time to look forward to in Galactic Battlegrounds as you seek to conquer the galaxy. You can still get it on Steam too, by the way. I really love this game, and if you love RTS games, you should absolutely go and grab this. 100%. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Now hurry up! We have to find Bastila. We have to make sure she makes it off the ship alive.
Admittedly, Knights of the Old Republic is a bit archaic in its combat due to the clunky general design. It really is. It can be a bit cumbersome at times, but still, that is no reason to shy away from this classic. Knights of the Old Republic takes pages from tabletop RPGs to make the adventure your own by providing deep character customization and captivating storytelling. It's a whole other corner of Star Wars that manages to stand on its own in every facet, and it does so with flying colors. If you haven't already, you need to get a copy of Knights of the Old Republic for yourself. I promise you, you won't regret it. LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Even though we've been spoiled to death with the features brought forth by Skywalker Saga and future LEGO games, LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga is still a blast to play. While it is generally a repackaged compilation of the first two games, it does mix things up by adding in 2 levels cut from the first LEGO Star Wars, as well as a handful of bonus levels and reworked vehicle segments. And for veteran players, some puzzles have changed to include the new mechanics that were introduced in LEGO Star Wars 2. Honestly, this is a better package than its predecessors simply by content and scale alone. And the fact that you can play this on your Xbox Series XS, yeah man, grab it. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Of all the single-player Star Wars games, The Force Unleashed was the best of its kind. Here, we had a gritty and explosive game that lets us go nuts with Force abilities as Vader's long-lost apprentice, Starkiller. Not only did it fully utilize the graphical power of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, it also told a brilliantly written story while giving us pure, unadulterated power with the Force. Regardless if you played it on console, PC, or even handheld, The Force Unleashed delivered, and the multiplayer mode was just as exciting to play with friends. Star Wars Battlefront series. Now, we've spent the whole list talking about primarily single-player games. Why? Because the one Star Wars multiplayer series is the only one we ever need. Battlefront has long reigned as the dominant and superior Star Wars game series since it debuted in 2004. The first game, Battlefront 2, the Squadron spin-offs for handheld, they all gave exciting battles on familiar terrain while giving Star Wars a distinguished formula in the realm of PvP multiplayer games. We only wish EA and DICE did the series proper justice when they tried to resurrect it in 2015 and 2017. At least you can still access the older titles today, so you can see what Battlefront really is.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.